Hey everybody, welcome to WeldFever. On today's episode, we're going to help a viewer in distress by showing him how to cut some bevels on some plate using only our 4.5 inch angle grinder. So stick with me, here we go. Now if I were about to cut some bevels on some plates in order to do some practice tests, my first weapon of choice would be this. I may also choose to use this. Or perhaps even this, or even this. And as a last resort, I would probably use this, a 4.5 inch angle grinder. And that's where our viewer finds himself. We have a viewer who wants to cut some bevels on some 3/8 inch plate in order to complete, I guess, some practice tests for his certification. And this is the tool he has to do it with. So he asked me how can he do it more effectively, because apparently he's been trying and they haven't been coming out too well. So that's what we're hopefully going to answer for him today. Here we go. So in thinking about how all we would do this, I went ahead and picked some tools that I feel would be most useful for this experiment here. And here they are. First of all, we need our plate. Now this happens to be a 1/2 inch piece of plate, and one of the sides are beveled already, but this one is not. I've gone ahead and I've cleaned all the mill scale off and brought this to shiny metal just so that we can see the marks that are left when we go through and start marking this up. Also, we're going to need some kind of a marker like a Sharpie, some kind of an angle finder or guide, a straight edge of some kind. This is a speed square, but I'm just going to use it as for the straight edge of it, and some type of grips, vice grips or clamp in order to clamp it down to the table. And last if not least, and the star of the show here, the 4.5 inch angle grinder with a grinding stone in it. Now when you're doing something like this, the very first thing you have to get correct is the angle. Now our viewer would like to get this angle at 22.5 degrees. When you put 22.5 degrees on one side and you put it on the other side, on the opposite side, you then have a 45 degree included angle, which basically means you add up both sides of the angles, both sides, and it gives you the total of what the included angle is. Anyway, enough of that. 22.5 degrees. Now this particular cut here happens to be at 22.5 degrees. So we need to get our measuring device, our angle finding device, and you notice I'm bringing in my angle guide here, and I'm now checking this angle here so that I can get it straight. Now if you look at the line here, this is hard to see, but let me take this out now. I have this all set in place. If you look at the line here, it looks like it's just south of 70, which it is. In fact, it's at 68.5 degrees. Well, why is that? Well, because we're not looking for 22.5 degrees for this. We're looking at for 22.5 degrees below or under 90 degrees. So, in essence, we're looking for 68.5 degrees, which is exactly where this lines up to. By getting 68.5 degrees, we now have our 22.5 degree angle. I know that sounds a little confusing, but hopefully you guys are able to follow that. I know sometimes I get confused, but anyway, it is what it is. So let's move on. By the way, I think I should mention that I'm working with a 1/2 inch piece of plate, if I didn't mention it already. And the reason for that is I just don't happen to have a 3/8 inch piece of plate that would work in this application. So I went ahead and did a 1/2. It's going to take me a little longer to do a 1/2 versus 3/8, but it's for a good cause. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and take our guide, and we're going to line this up the best we can here, and hopefully you'll be able to see this as good as possible, but I need to try to figure out how to hold this and film it and everything else all at the same time. And that looks about right, and then I'm going to mark this. And that's not too bad. Okay, so there's my mark. There it is. I'm going to do the same now to the other side. Okay, I feel the key to getting this right is really setting it up right. So that's why I have a straight edge with a back edge on it here. And I'm going to now take that and make the mark all the way across from one end of the mark to the other. and that'll give me a very dark black line, and that is going to be the top of our bevel. And you see there's the side. And so really what I'm going to do is I'm going to now take this and fill this in here. And I'm going to color this in because this is basically going to be our grind down line. Okay? I'm going to take the top here and fill this in. And actually I'll get the larger Super Duty Sharpie and fill all this in. Now basically, as a result of filling this in with marker, we're going to have to then grind this until we don't see any more black appearing. And once we have all that ground out, all the black, then we'll know we're at where we need to be. The back edge is going to be basically kept intact as much as possible. So we're going to have to be very careful to grind that just on one side. And let me show you how I set it up. Okay, so here I am, and here is my piece clamped in, and you can see here's the dark line that I'm going to follow. And I'm going to just keep going at this angle, roughly the 22-degree angle, until I can get this thing where I need it to be. I'm going to take my time, and I'm just going to ride this across back and forth, getting this, taken care of and slowly and surely going. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and show this beginning part of this in real time rather than speeding it up, because I think it's very important that you get the idea of the strokes involved here and the way we take the grinding wheel and move it deliberately, slowly from one end all the way to the other end in pretty much a single stroke. The reason for that is because we're trying to develop some flatness here. And if you notice, there's already a definite line being formed where I'm grinding, and it looks like the thickness of the grind is pretty much equal at this point. And that's from taking nice, long, deliberate strokes from one end to the other. Now I want to stop and say that the whole time I'm doing this, I'm keeping my eye on what's going on here. Okay, so now I have sped this up at a ridiculous rate, but the point of it is because, this gets to be very monotonous. It's very, very long, tedious process, and I'm sure you don't want to sit in for all of that, but you get the gist of what's going on here in a short amount of time. And it's just a continuation of what I said initially, and that is to take long, even strokes across. Now, every now and then, I'll notice a high spot, and I'll focus on it a little bit more. As I mentioned before, I got to really pay attention to what I'm doing the entire time, and really watch for high spots that are developing, or maybe if my angle's a little bit off. And so, as I go, I adjust, and that's exactly what I'm doing here, until finally I get to a point where things are looking really good and really flat, and it's coming along well. Okay, the only other thing I want to add here is that you notice my line is still there. I'm working towards it, but I don't want to really get too aggressive and get beyond that line. I want that line to still be there all the way to the very end. This is a very slow, methodical process. On speed up it doesn't look so, but it really is, and I'm really paying it close attention and watching what I'm doing every step of the way. Okay, if you'll notice, we're pretty darn close here. I've got it all the way down to the very dark edge, and it's pretty flat. I've got a very little black line on the top. That's as far as I dare go with the grinder. The next thing I'm going to do is break out the flap disc and finish it with that. Okay, you might notice that for every thing I do, I have another grinder that has the actual disc that I want on it. Rest assured, you don't need to have this many grinders in order to pull this off. All you need to do is just switch them out every time, but I just happen to have a lot of grinders and it makes life easy for me, so that's how I do it. Anyway, here goes. I'm going to use the flap disc to finish off the rest of it. Here we go. Okay, so unlike the grinding stone, I can make a lot of fine adjustments with the flap disc here. And of course it's going to give me a high polish finish as well. But I'm not so much looking at that as I am looking at the ability to really flatten this thing out and really take out any little creases or ridges or high spots that might be left. This is where I really get to fine-tune this to get it nice and flat and straight. And that's what the flap disc is fantastic for. And as you can see, it's working out really well. Okay, I've gone ahead and released the piece from the clamp, and hopefully you can see here. It's kind of hard to see, but you can barely see the outline of the bit of black here, and also along the top where I just failed to go all the way to the edge, and that's on purpose. You see the edge here is nice and flat, and again, I'm going to say that the reason why I chose the flap disc after I use the grinder is because the flap disc allows me to get this, to fine tune it and get this nice flatness. And of course it takes a little bit of experience, but it's not outrageously difficult to master. All you have to do is just, you know, practice a little bit. So here it is. This is the side that I did, and this is the side that was already cut at 22.5 degrees. And if you take a look at the angle finder, it looks like we are right on the money, right where we need to be. This is the final product. That is how you would bevel a piece of stock with a 4.5-inch angle grinder. I hope this helps the viewer out there that asked for it, and I also hope it helps a lot of you out there who are also looking to bevel some plates in order to do some practice for a certification test. And it helps to show you that you really don't need complicated tools to accomplish what appear to be complicated tasks. All you need to do is have, you know, some basic stuff and a little bit of desire to do it. Don't forget to visit WeldFever.com, visit our forum and discuss things like this. And also don't forget to visit the store on WeldFever.com, where we offer our logo hats and logo stickers, and coming soon, our logo t-shirts. Anything that you purchase, the proceeds go to help promote the show and help to make it better. So do us a favor and support us, and we'd appreciate it. Thanks a lot. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.